All right, what's going on, Jake?
Hey Kurt, welcome to Comics That Influence. So this is our
Yeah,
secondary channel or series or whatever
segments. I came up with the
segment,
word segment. Yeah, this is a segment.
right?
Yeah.
We have our Turbo Pit Fighter series where we're making a comic, and we're up to episode. What number episode are we up to? Like
We
50,
just recorded 65.
65. So 65 weekly episodes of the making of Turbo Pit Fighter, a sci-fi comic, and then we have this other segments that we're doing where we spotlight artists and comics that we really want to look at. Sometimes just to explore, and sometimes to marvel at and drool over, because it's like really good artists and good craftsmanship. And there's things that we discuss. So, what are you going to be showing us today?
Spain Rodriguez. I
Oh,
just
really?
saw the yeah, I got it. I have the we're only going to review one story. We're not going through the whole entire book because we are worried about getting losing our channel privileges because Spain is he's no apologetic comic book artist. As I said, I found the Bad Attitude Spain Rodriguez documentary last night on Amazon. Paid my $3. It was done by his partner, wife, mother of his child, daughter, Susan Stern. And I have to say, it was done very well. Obviously, it was a low budget type of thing, but it had Crumb, Art Spiegelman, a lot of his brothers from the Vulture. What do they call the Vulture gang? Vulture Riders, something like that. Anyhow, but the reason I want to bring him up is he is probably technically somebody I am closer to as a, let's say, an inker um, than any other comic book artist out there. Now, I came to Spain late in the game. And when I say late, like within the last like 10 years, I mean, I knew of him because of Zap Comics, which is, he's a part of the true beginning of underground comics, which is Zap Comics, which was started by R. Crumb, that had Robert Williams, Victor Marscosa, Spain Rodriguez, S. Clay Wilson. So that was something that really got the ball rolling for guys like you and I. But I'm just going to go to one of his big hits, which is called Trashman. So it's very autobiographical as science fiction and fantasy can go to. But I think this story really sort of illustrates his inking technique and his story technique, which, like I said, if I had a spiritual animal that was a cartoonist, I think it would be Spain Rodriguez. But I'm definitely not going to spoil a lot about the documentary because I'm going to say this: it was a bit sad, but it wasn't sad for what somebody would um, first as an impression. I think the sadness is that there's a time where he stops making comics and he just sort of does commercial work. And I think he probably felt that there was very little to no space for his voice and his work. And I find that to be a tragedy. I believe everybody should have that feeling of being heard, at least. But, those are the breaks. So, with that being said, we're going to go into Subvert Comics number 2. Let me, here, hold on a second. I want to get me there. All right, here we go. That gives, basically is the dominant story in here is Trashman, and I don't know if it's Agent of the Sixth International. And this is 1972. So in Trashman, it's his like agent personification or persona. But you can see how he's one of those gateway um, uh, underground artists that when you saw this work in a comic like this one, and you wanted to make a comic and you weren't that interested in making a superhero comic for Marvel and DC, this comic gave you the permission to go ahead and draw the way you want to see a comic told. So
Yeah, he's
there
got
is
really really
some the
bold
other
lines.
person.
It,
It's just thick and heavy, and
it reminds me of there's another I guess underground artist that used really bold lines that used to have like a skunk character, a female skunk character. But yeah, I mean, not afraid to make the lines just really, really super bold whenever he wants to, but also a lot of different values on the page. Really interesting pages there.
yeah,
And then Spot Black, good color balance, the drapery, it's all great. So this is a great example of his like top of his game work.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, I've been thumbing through this since last night and checking out that documentary, Bad Attitude. But once again, one of the things I toe a line in our main segment on Turbo Pit Fighter, the podcast where we're talking about making a comic, is if you're making a comic for black and white, you have got to understand, appreciate, and attack values. Values being everything from white to black and black back to white. It's all those grays. And he really just brings it on. He really this is the page I want everybody to stop their screen and meditate on. It came in the documentary that one of his first jobs, if not his first job, was working as a janitor in a factory that made telephone lines, like copper cabling or whatever. And he says it was great because nobody paid attention to him, and he was able to wander around this just industrial complex and make sketches, take things in mind. So for somebody who was going to use things like this as a background, he had a true understanding for it, and probably even a respect. So going from there, hand lettering. We just are coming to the end of hand lettering our first Turbo teaser. I was looking at the way he was approaching, and I could say I have a similarity in approach to his lettering, but you'll notice it doesn't stand out. Like you kind of have to follow the text through this story maze, and then you read it, and then you move, and you read it, and you jump to the next page, and it says later, car 7 converges, and blah blah. It's it's just a symphony. I mean, look at that. Look at that. This is 1972, people. Look at this. This is very, very hard to top, in my opinion. But I think you need to rest on the shoulder of giants. And this is one of those. I know I'm doing my best to emulate a similarity in work, black high contrast and underground. But this is it. This
Yeah, I
is
mean
it.
when it comes to Spain, I mean I think the one of the biggest stories is you know how he ends up, as one of the premier underground guys, and going in that direction. He clearly could have gone the other way, but I guess he wanted to retain the artistic freedom and not have to say, "All right, I'm going to do Batman," and then it has to look this way or that way. He wanted to just do his own characters, and there's a price to pay for that. It's kind of limiting in a way, but as far as creatively, there's no limits, and so that's always the decision that you have to make if you want to work in the underground or the adult comic section, is that if you want to work for Marvel and DC, you're going to have an editor, you're going to have a house style, you're going to have to really conform, and that's something that he never did. None of those Zap guys ever conformed or apologized. They pushed the envelopes in everything they did. So
Well,
you
they pushed
know
the
this.
medium. That's really what they did is they broke. They're that division from, let's say, EC and Golden Age, just figuring comic books out from 1937, 8 on to the 50s. These guys all grew up in the 50s, so that was their diet. And then as comics, what's it when Fantastic Four and Thor, that's early 60s, 1, 2, 3, something like that. So now comic books, as Marvel and DC go, are launching off. It's all about superheroes. It's all about the fantastic and the mythology. But what happened to all those EC stories, those non superhero stories, where it was about a guy on a mission or a space guy, on a planet, or so they were using that, but then they were also doubling down on the stream of consciousness, because this is also, late 60s, early 70s is a hotbed for rebelling against the government, Vietnam, sexual liberation, feminism, and he was right there. And I think he just found that to be his stew, and he just stirred that pot. And I think as it gets closer to the 80s and maybe even entering and moving through the 80s, that all
Mhm.
just drops away. So I don't think he really had like I said, I think it's very sad that we didn't have comics all the way to the day he died. That was just his impression of what was going on in the world through the comics medium. I can't stop staring at this page. I really
Yeah.
can't. I just drove through an industrial refinery last week, and literally went back and drove through it again because I just love uh, that kind of thing. So, but
Yeah.
I
That's
just
a
wanted people who, if they were not aware of Spain Rodriguez and his work, and you're into underground and making black and white comics, please get your education. Go out there and find him, support him, love him and hate him.
don't sleep on him.
Don't sleep on him. But that was the segment I wanted to bring in today on the comics that influence me, at least. And like, as I've said, I have a stack of books that are within arm reach. And as I'm inking and I'm going, oh man, which way do I go? I just pull a comic out. In the last 10 years, this has been like number 2 or 3 that I've pulled out. And with some of these guys, it just sort of makes me stop doing what I'm doing and just really dive back in to what these guys were accomplishing, especially Span Rodriguez. So
Yeah.
that's
He
what
would.
I got.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Spain is cool. The I think the definitive interview to read was when he spoke to the Comics Journal. Um, and I picked up this Zap Compendium book, Volume 9, the Comics Journal Library, Volume 9, the Zap interviews. I got this for $15 upstate, and the Spain interview is in there. Here it is. So, if you really want to get into his
Oh
whole,
wow, I got to get a hold of that.
yeah,
Yeah,
his whole history and everything, check out this interview with Gary Groff, and there's the man himself. Um,
yeah,
so this is
nice,
definitely something to look forward to when I finally get around to reading that.
awesome.
So yeah, for me today, I wanted to feature Frank Thorne. Frank Thorne is a guy that has very stylized art here, and he's most well known, obviously, from his run on Red Sonja, where they really just handed him the franchise. And I was just trying to look up his bibliography, and his history a little bit. But first, let's run through some of these Red Sonja comics because um, Frank Thorne had a very, very distinctive style, and I never really thought about it until just now. But you know what artist Frank Thorne is really kind of like a real offshoot from?
Who?
Can you guess? Because
No.
if you see at his early work, he looks like a real clone, Joe Kubert.
Uh, Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd give that.
yeah. If you look
I'd
at
give
his
that
early
over.
work, so he did a series called Tomahawk for DC. And the I think Hubert was doing the covers and Thorne was doing the inside, and they were really trying to, I guess, have a cohesive look. But Frank Thorne has a very unique style. Um, he loves these, female characters, and um, he was also one of the first ones to use these black panel borders. I don't remember seeing anybody use these like thick black panel boards before Frank Thorne. He had a style that was sometimes very simplified, sometimes very, sometimes even a little cartoony. But very just like the thing about him is that his layouts are just so expressive, right? The body language,
Fluid.
storytelling, right? You just
Ah,
get sucked into a story. I remember reading all of these Red Sonja comics when I was a kid, and you just immediately get pulled right into it. So he's a kind of a storyteller where he really does the script justice by bringing you straight into it, right? And look, it says he does his own lettering and his own color. So this is from 1977, which is a little late in his run, and he's probably very systematized here. But here you can see like just the right amount of decorative elements. The lettering, he's good at lettering. He does all of his own lettering here. Just the right amount of background elements, right, to establish, locations, but he's also kind of like probably, ripping through these pretty quick if he's doing a monthly book. So you get into the story with him, and sometimes there's a lot of writing. So this was a Roy Thomas script from '77, and there was probably some substance to it. So you want to carry that along. You do have all this kind of like setup part where people are just standing around talking. But look at the angles, right? It's never just like the same thing. Like here, you're looking at this guy through the legs. Here, you're looking at him, and she's kind of like in this cutaway shot. And then here it's reversed. And then here there's a top down view, and here there's a close up view. So, he keeps it interesting. This is a little bit of the style, right? He brings here, like, this is like a glamorous area. This is a downtrodden area. So, he's very expressive. He's just such a pro by this point. And so, just gonna flip through this Red Sonja story here. Um, the one criticism that Red Sonja the character gets is that she's just like super pretty and awesome and amazing and everything, and so how can she be doing all of this like fighting and like defeating like a whole horde of barbarians if she's just like got a sword and a bikini, right? And
I'll
like
tell you
these
why. I tell you
yeah,
how. You know how she does it?
how
Fantasy.
right, exactly. So
That's all it is.
right,
It's fantasy. Oh
no,
my
but
god! I never questioned it at 14 years old. I never
right.
stopped. It was like, wait a second. I got to get somebody from Marvel on the phone to explain to me how this is actually happening.
Look at this great thing where she's in a gladiator pit now, right? So she's a pit fighter here, and she's going out and she's leading this troop of, I guess, like underdogs, and they're gonna fight these big, like husky guys, and and it's on. But yeah, I mean, Red Sonja really is kind of like the epitome of the female, like a female warrior fantasy where, it's 100% aesthetic, but she still just kicks ass everywhere she goes, right? I mean, I've seen some pretty good Frank Thorne stories where she gets beat up and knocked around quite a bit, which makes it maybe a little bit believable. So, like, she wins, but she's taking her lumps. But, most of the time she just wins, like a superhero, and here she is, squaring off against a female who's just as, I guess, just as good of a fighter as she is. So, this is some interesting kind of like cat fight stuff here. The face angles, the expressiveness, the reaction shots here. And then we finally see here, I remember this, like, she's defeated and then she turns into this creature. And then Terriman Ehrlich, what happens now? She's got this whole other thing to deal with. But she dispatches the evil spider sorceress just as easily, and then goes on to the stuff. So Red Sonja was really kind of like a journey for me because it's not very believable. It does belong in the Robert E. Howard world of barbarians and stuff, but she was really a throwaway character that Marvel just had a surprising hit with. And so this one right here is Marvel feature number 4, 1976. This is a little bit earlier than the other one. This is a great story right here. Bruce Jones wrote it, and he wasn't at Marvel very often. He wasn't there for long. He took off into the indie space, but working with Frank Thorne and Roy Thomas here. And this is a great story. And you notice there's a lot of like small panels in here because he's fitting a lot in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 panels on a page. It's like almost unheard of, but he makes it work. And he's got these black border panels here and, mixed in with regular panels and then some no panels. It's great stuff. Some of this storytelling, there's no dialogue. There's just like action and sound effects. But in this one, Red Sonja is she's definitely doing a lot of fighting, and then a lot of times she comes up against this like enchantment stuff. Like this. Here it's like the people are being substituted with stones. They're turned to stones, and we don't find out till later. See, look, here's the classic Hunchback of Notre Dame. She becomes, incapacitated, and she's saved by this ogre hunchback dude. And just a great style of Frank Thorne. Like, he has his basic outlines, and he puts in this little shading and everything, but it's just like it's Frank Thorne style shading, right? It's not meant to be realistic. It's just mark making that he uses to kind of put his fingerprint on stuff. And he does a great job of just showing like these just partial shots. Like here, her face is cut off on the bottom third. Here, it's only a slice of it. Here, it's only a slice of the action. Here, it's a slice of the action, but she's popping out of the panel. Just a master storyteller. So I'll just go through this one a little quick. Here's some really nice. I mean, I think this is working really well here with the colors. Really splashy colors. A lot of vibrant primary colors, the snakes here, the sacrifice, the ladies up on the cross, a lot going on here. Red Sonja is like cutting her way through all these guys, right? Everything is like overlapping one into the other. So when we talk about like these guys that have a natural sense of leading the eye, right? Like you look at this and then this comes around to this, you read all this stuff, right? Then you come down here, this kind of overlaps, brings you into here, this points up to here, right? This points over here, this looks over here, right? This is kind of like edging you down this way. Love this stuff, popping panels. A lot of value here. A lot of great value here on the page. And then this like splash panel where it's like this Medusa looking lady. And then she gets turned to stone, or so the reader thinks. And then there's this great ending down here. Look at all this. He's dealing with a lot of writing here, a lot of text, and so you know he does it. I mean, there's no way around it. So what do? You just say, all right, I'm just going to show a tiny little bit of the face here. I'm just going to show the eyes, right? The eyes are the most expressive. Like, what are the eyebrows doing, right? This whole panel is like 2/3 text. This whole panel is like 7/8 text, right? But he still gives you, some indications in there of where they are, what's going on, who's talking, and so it's great. There's so much going on in these panels. I mean, this could have been like a much longer story, but he's breaking these panels up into small little chunks here, and and finally you get the resolution. It's like, this blind guy. They were substituting people with stone statues to trick the people, and I love this because here she gets really injured and she's like kind of hobbling around. You can see the body language, for Sonja. This is just like such a big fan, and like here she's slashed, and she's hit again and again and again. So this is what makes it like a little more believable, and then she finally gets the rope in the right angle, and she pours the hot molten metal over the guy to make him a stone, and and that's the end. Love this one. So just real quick, going into Frank Thorne's bio. Frank Thorne was born in 1930, and he just died in 2021. I think right around the time we started our podcasting. So
Yeah.
we didn't really do a tribute to him, I guess. This also says that his longtime wife died just hours after he died on the same day.
Jeez.
So here we can see this is lambic.net, but Frank Thorne started his comic career in 1948. Standard Comics gave him several romance stories to pencil. After graduation, he drew Perry Mason newspaper strip. He credits Hal Foster as a major influence. His big breakthrough comes in 1975 when he's drawing Red Sonja for Marvel. And then he leaves in 1978 to create his own warrior woman, Gita of Alizar. Since then, he created Land for Heavy Metal and Moonshine McJugs for Playboy during the 80s, and the Iron Devil and the Devil's Angel during the 1990s. He slowed down and then passed away at age 90 in 2021. So that's a little bit of Frank Thorne. And then I wanted to show you. Yeah, so these are all his covers. I mean, these are all the books that he worked on. Not too many. I think it's not even 20. Uh, Gotta turn that on. But I want to show these tomahawk covers. Yeah, so he was an artist on this tomahawk series, and they look like Kubert covers to me. But I don't know if they were Frank Thorne kind of like channeling Kubert. And so Tomahawk, I guess, is like a Native American guy, but they're kind of like these Western stories or whatever. This is back in DC, the 15 cent period. Um, so yeah, I'm not sure exactly what his role was in Tomahawk, but that was interesting, and I guess that's how he broke in. So that's a little report on Frank Thorne right there.
Nice.
He
Nice.
was interviewed over the years, and one of his most famous appearances was at a Comic Con where Wendy Pini of ElfQuest dressed up as Red Sonja, and Frank Thorne dressed up as a wizard, and everybody took pictures, and I think that was one of the earliest examples of cosplay. I think right here. Here's Frank Thorne posing with a Red Sonja cosplayer, and here's the man himself with looks like a little 3D sculpture. So yeah, I just love pointing out Frank Thorne because he's got such a signature style. It's like nobody else. It's instantly recognizable, and he really kind of like stuck to his guns. He did like Red Sonja and Red Sonja ish characters, all throughout. And here there's just a couple of other examples of him doing interior pages for House of Mystery. Here, I guess he's doing the Joker before the Joker was a thing. And you can see, like, it was basically his style, but, it was a little bit more. I mean, it does remind you of Kubert, his early work.
Oh, I agree.
Um, but, when he's doing his romance things, it's also just that kind of house style. which is like a combination of like John Romita and Gil Kane, Carmine Infantino, like just doing like a real serviceable job. And then he kind of like, just like Kirby, he kind of like takes off and gets more and more stylized as he gets older. And here is that famous cosplay, I guess, photo shoot, right? That he was involved in. Oh, or that's just like Gita cosplayer. So, yeah, he definitely had his eye for the ladies, drawing them and posing with them in cosplay. But what a pro! What a pro! So R.I.P. to Frank Thorne, and I guess R.I.P. to Spain Rodriguez, right?
Two greats,
Yep.
two necessary books to be in your collection, especially if you're aspiring to become a full-time comic book artist.
Yeah, and if you're 18 and over, you could really get into Spain, and all the
Oh,
stuff
the
that he
same
did.
with Gita is pretty adult
Yeah,
oriented, as well as what was it? Oh man, there were so many of them that he had did, but that one he had done for
yeah, he did
Playboy.
Lan and he
Um,
did
but
Gita,
they were
and
not. But the thing is that they were not grotesque. Like they weren't just done for pornography's sake.
no,
It
Frank
was
Thorne was
it
always
was
one of
dealing
these.
with adult. It was dealing with an adult fantasy content. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, it was
sex
it was
just
it was
happened to be
just
a part of that.
it was just kind of suggestive. Frank Thorne was always
Yeah.
like a tasteful, classy, guy. I mean, there was some examples where he do like cat fights and bondage and all that kind of stuff, but
Yeah,
it was all,
yeah,
all in the
it's good.
context of storytelling. He was just a great storyteller. Before we sign off for today, I want to show you something I picked up. Um, this is an LP record, and it doesn't. From 1966. And I haven't listened to it
Wow.
yet, so I'm looking forward to listening to this. I picked this up for I think I paid $20 for it. I usually don't pay more than that. I might have paid 15 or $20. Or maybe I traded for it. But comic book heroes, an original musical idea of super duper adventures of yesterday's comic book heroes, set to music by the Capes and Masks. So this was apparently some kind of studio band that I I don't know what I'm going to be listening to. I don't know if this is going to be like
That sounds. That's probably going to be really cool.
right. It says the side A is the Eagles Code, the Wedding of Mr. Universe and Fantastic Gal, the Secret Arsenal, the Man from Tanta, Agent Quadruple O 8 or Section 8, the Incredible Shazam, the Atom Smasher fights the Canary Gang from the planet Xeroxa, RU-12 versus FMG, Hey What the Apollo Investigation, and Pshaw. Like, what is this product? Right? So this is going to be very, very interesting to listen to, and I will give you a full report. This is on Mainstream Records, by the way, who was the label that launched Big Brother and the Holding Company, Mountain, and a lot of famous '60s bands. But this looks like something very interesting to explore on the record player when I get the chance. So I'm gonna pop this on later on. So that's all I got. Kurt, can you say
Awesome.
goodbye to these people
Yes,
and
yes.
come back next week?
Fantastic. I'll see you next week.
All right, everybody. Ciao.